Good morning. Actually, I think it's afternoon. It is 12:10 p.m. or pum. I haven't talked to you for a while. I've been uploading things that I've done, but I haven't been having updates and just talking to you. It was such a beautiful week last week. It was above room temperature outside. And oh, Willem, the curtain is out the door. I'll do that in a minute. It's raining out today. It was mild this morning. It was milder than it was yesterday. I guess it was about room temperature, and the wind was blowing, and around 9 o'clock it got really dark. Now it's been raining ever since. Well, for the last few days, what I've been doing is working on my pottery. I have thrown and dried, I guess it was, I don't know, maybe about 40 bowls. A couple of them had to be trashed. Not bad for the amount. I'm getting better at it. I'm learning how to pull it up. It's definitely practice helps. They look a lot better than my first pots, my first cylinders. They're not as thick anymore. I'm able to trim a lot off when my bottoms are too big, too heavy. I can dig down on the inside and make the bowl bigger, or I can cut the bottom off, trim it off. Anyway, so I've been doing that. And then on the weekend, I fired 33 bowls. That's a lot. The kiln holds a lot of bowls, doesn't it? I did that on Saturday while I watched General Conference. And then Sunday the kiln cooled down while we went to conference at church. And then this morning I unloaded it, but I didn't just unload it. I got my wax ready and I unloaded it and immediately waxed the bottoms. Turned them upside down. I went to the greenhouse this morning and I found some glaze. It's a turquoise. I forget what color turquoise is. Oh yeah, it's like that. Anyway, so my first pile of bowls, I forget how many there were of the first batch, but those are green. And I don't have enough green to do a whole batch. But I was searching for my glaze ingredients, and I found these big containers. And I wondered exactly what was in them. I had bought all this stuff from a lady. I had spent $250. I bought her the wheel, the wooden wheel, which is outside, and all of her glazes and tools. And I think maybe I bought her kiln. No, I didn't. I don't think I did buy her kiln. I think I had a kiln from Mira, and hers was just like it. But anyway, so I had bought that stuff, and so I've been storing it in the glass teepee for years. I guess I bought all that and I arrived home with it the day that my father died. I bought it all. I went to Calabogie and I got it. I brought it home, and then that night I unloaded it beside the driveway. And that night, well, 2 in the morning the next morning, my mother phoned and my father had died. So I went to Georgia and I was there for most of 6 months trying to figure out how to take care of my mother and teaching her all kinds of stuff so she could do it herself. Anyway, so the long and the short of it is that stuff all moved from the driveway into the sunroom. No, not the sunroom. Into the glass teepee. And I used the wheel out there for a while. And then I did a kiln load, and I ruined the kiln because I couldn't see my cone. And I didn't have a clue. I couldn't see through the vent to see when it bent. And the kiln sitter didn't shut off, I guess. Or maybe it had fallen but not turned the kiln off. Whatever. Anyway, it cremated everything. The stuff I had fired. And it was my first kiln run. You know, one kiln, some people it costs more for them to learn. Anyway, so then eventually I bought another kiln and a wheel, and so I have the wheel and the kiln inside. I bought them from Joann. And so I have been working on, also I took a course at Mira. I took a pottery course. And Mira's technique and Joann's are very different. Joann's known how to do this for 30 years and has been a production potter, producing dinnerware for years and years and years. And so she's so good at it. And things are fast. She does it, she'll let them dry. She'll open the window, let things dry if she wants to fire it that night. So she'll throw one day, maybe trim that evening, and maybe fire it that night. I mean, she's really fast. She knows her stuff. Or maybe that's faster than she actually does it. Anyway, but you get the idea. But at Mira, I would do stuff, and you had to cover your thing that you made. You had to cover it with plastic so that it would slow down the drying, so that it would take a week between when you made it and when you went back to trim it. And then you would trim it, and then you would have to cover it again. You know, like if you put your handles and stuff on, so you have to cover it and then come back a week later and tidy it all up. And then you could finally let it dry thoroughly. And then you had to wait for everybody to make enough stuff that there was enough for a kiln run. And we were beginners, so some people were making tiles and some people were making little dishes or soap dishes or different things. So it took a long time because nobody was a production potter, so it wasn't filling the kiln. And so it took months before there was enough in there to run the kiln. By the time and then every week we would learn a different technique. You know, we learned anglaise or englobe, and using that black stuff on the edges, and we did hand-built pottery, and we did. So my mugs over there, I have 6 mugs that I had tried to do a production, you know, try it quickly. So I made 6 of them, and they are very thick, and they're short, and they're a little different from each other, and they're a little bit misshapen. But those are my first. And I did the underglaze, you know, where I drew on them and used a clear glaze over it. Anyway, so doing this myself, or the way Joann does it, everything is quick. And there's no waiting between throwing it, and you don't have to slow down the drying process. Anyway, so this has been very cool to fill up the kiln again. So anyway, did I finish telling you? So I fired it, and this morning I emptied the kiln out one piece at a time. I took it out, kind of wiped off any dust that was inside, and I dipped it in the wax and put it upside down. And then I had all this glaze. This one glaze was, this is where I left off. This one glaze was COL Glossy TURQ. So is that Colonial COL? Glassy or anyway. So I think that's going to be nice. So I brought that in and I mixed it up. It had all settled. There was water on the top and thick, heavy stuff on the bottom. So I used my stick blender and I blended until there was nothing on the bottom. And then I ran it through the sieve, and there was little gritty stuff, and so I tossed that. I hope that was the right thing to do, to toss it. And there was a little bit of what looked like clay, but hard rock stuff in the bottom of the bucket when I poured the bucket to sieve it, to strain it. So I chucked that. I couldn't I couldn't powder it up, so I figured it wasn't supposed to be there. And so that was, there was about this much thick stuff at the bottom and another that much water at the top. So it made enough that and it's in a big enough container that I was able to dip my stuff. And so I wiped them with, well, at first I just dipped them. And they had millions of little bubbles on them, and I think they were absorbing too much glaze. So I used the sponge and I wiped them inside and out with water to make them not absorb so much glaze. And then I dipped them and I took them out and let them dry. And after I had dipped everything so that everything is ready to fire, I started refilling the kiln. I had to check my furniture, there was another box in the greenhouse. I thought there might be more in there, and there was. So these were little pieces, because I had the really tall ones when I had bisque fired. I stacked things inside. So that's right, I had fired 33 pieces, but you can't fire that many in a glaze firing because they're not supposed to touch. So I hope everything is far enough apart in there. So I filled up the kiln again. Actually, I wiped off the edges of what I had glazed. I wiped off any drips, and I collected all the dust, and I dumped it back into my glaze container. Wiped off the bottoms, and I arranged them on the shelves with posts that were taller than the pots. And I lined them all up, so I measured the height against the posts, so I knew which posts I could use with which pots. And so I would get the most out of my space. But then I had one set, I used a bit of high posts, because there was one piece in there that was a little taller. And when I got to the top layer, I filled the kiln sitter, and then I did the next layer and the next layer. And when I got to the top, my shelf was right in front of the hole. Well, that's not going to work. You've got to be able to see when your thing melts. I don't know how you're supposed to see 3 of them in there, because even if they're all put together in one piece of clay, when they melt, they're wider than like if you put them at an angle like that, so you see them a little off. And if you put them side by side, you're only going to be able to see, a little bit. Anyway, so I didn't take the stuff off the shelves, I just lifted the shelves carefully out. And I got down to the one that was a little higher, and I had used extra pieces on the top of them. So I took those extra pieces off the top of the posts, and I removed the one that was taller, the 2 that were taller, and 2 bowls that were taller, and I replaced them with shorter bowls. Then I put everything back in. And now the shelf was just down below the hole, and I lined up all my things, and so it'll work now. I do hope. So anyway, I turned the kiln on. I'll leave it on for 7 hours on low. That's 180 degrees, I guess, when it's on low. So it's very low. So that'll dry everything out. And then when the rates go down at 7, I'll start firing it. I'll turn it up. So that's a good job well done. I feel very good about that. I'm glad that they're in there. I'm getting into this. I'm really enjoying it, my little production. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Bye.